Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 21st edition of Today in the World of Wrestling. Tonight we are covering the episode of WWE Smackdown Live that aired on August 2nd, 2016. And this was a solid show, and I think it was a nice little step up from last week.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with you. I really liked a lot of what SmackDown did tonight.
Yeah, the kind of the overlying story on tonight's SmackDown was, is Dolph Ziggler good enough to be number one contender? And it was interesting because we started the night with Ziggler having a mic exchange with Dean Ambrose, and they went back and forth. Ziggler reminded Ambrose that he kind of started at the top because when he debuted, it was with Rollins and Reigns, and they immediately were shoved into main event feuds. Kind of talked about how he's had to work his way to the top, or to where he is. I don't know if I'd call it the top yet, but he's had to work for everything he's gotten. He started as a cheerleader. He's had to scratch and claw. And by the end of this promo, Dolph was kind of questioning himself. Dean left. And then who should show up but Bray Wyatt? Bray attacks Ziggler, challenges him to a match for the number one contendership because if he doesn't, he's not worth the spot in the first place. And then just kind of leaves. So what did you think of this, John?
Oh, very exciting opening segment, formally in the ring. I love this.
Ziggler also had a couple of backstage segments with Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon. The first one where he shows up and demands that they make this match between him and Bray Wyatt because he needs to prove it not only to Bray, not only to Dean, but to himself. And then we had another segment later on in the night where they kind of approached him and said, look, man, this isn't a good idea. And eventually we ended up with a segment where Dolph said, look, you guys don't even believe in me at this point. Screw you.
Really like that from Dolph. I really loved everything they did with his character tonight.
Absolutely. And that all led to our main event of the evening, which was Bray Wyatt versus Dolph Ziggler. And it was an interesting match. It was a solid match. Dolph was in fifth gear from go. He hit, and I think he immediately hit a drop kick and then a famouser and went for the pin. He used all of his signature offense relatively quickly. But the real changing point of the match was when Bray Wyatt started undoing a turnbuckle pad. That allowed Dolph Ziggler to get off the zigzag, goes for the pin, kicks, Bray kicked out. But then Ziggler kind of turned on a switch. He decided to finish untying said turnbuckle pad, which ended up playing into the finish of the match where Ziggler slams Bray's head up against it and then super kicks him for the 3 count. So Dolph Ziggler is still your number one contender, but now with an all-new, newly found confidence about him.
Yeah, excellent character development here for Dolph Ziggler, and it's starting to diminish the sour taste in my mouth about him being number one contender, so well done.
We also had two sort of new interview style things with Renee Young kind of almost sitting on like a pre-show panel set where she's sitting at a table and then across from the table is whoever she's interviewing. The first one, it was Carmela, and they were talking about Eva Marie, which we'll get to in a second. And as Carmela's talking about Eva Marie, Natalya shows up and is complaining about how Renee should be interviewing her instead. Talks about how she's wrestling royalty and talks about how her uncle Bret Hart is a legend and all this junk. And then she makes fun of Carmela for being the last pick drafted by SmackDown. So naturally, Carmela takes offense, challenges Natalya, but as their match is about to get started, Natalya attacks Carmela from behind during her entrance and ends up locking in the sharpshooter just to, I guess, send a message. I don't know.
I guess good heel heat for Natalya, but I was really disappointed we didn't get to see Carmella compete.
Yeah, and as I was talking about, they were talking about Eva Marie because prior to the Renee Young interview with Carmella, Becky Lynch versus Eva Marie was about to happen. And before the match actually was underway, before the bell even rang, Eva Marie was grabbing her left knee, and it seemed like she was in pain. And the referee kind of came over, and she was basically telling the ref, no, I can't compete. The ref pulled a trainer over to help her out of the ring, and then we got the announcement that this match was not going to happen. So the ultimate heel, Eva Marie, is, depriving the WWE Universe of getting to see Becky Lynch perform.
I love it, and I'll say more about Eva Marie on TitWoW.
That said, there was another Renee Young interview segment in this sort of pre/post-show style thing. I think that they were using that to set up Talk and Smack, which is going to be the SmackDown post-show that they do on the network. Should be interesting. I think we're actually going to tune into that after we're done recording everything. But her second interview is with Dean Ambrose, and really this whole thing was just them talking about the number one contender spot.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. Again, Dean almost kind of overlooking Dolph here, saying, yeah, it normally takes a bit longer for Dolph to self-destruct. So definitely more of an arrogant kind of vibe to me from Ambrose.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. He definitely has an I don't give a shit about anything vibe going to him right now.
Exactly.
So another big story tonight was that they were trying to crown a new number one contender for the Intercontinental Championship. And that was actually the first match that we got of the night. Kalisto versus Baron Corbin versus Apollo Crews. This match was set out by Daniel Bryan at the beginning of the show because The Miz was angry at him for not being happy to draft him. Bryan made it clear that he was happy about drafting the Intercontinental Championship, but that we needed to find someone to challenge The Miz for it. So that was this match. And at the end of the day, Apollo Crews defeated Kalisto. He actually pinned Kalisto for the win. And then, of course, after the match, Baron Corbin attacks Kalisto. And then Apollo Crews comes back to attack Corbin. And then The Miz, who was at ringside during commentary, attacks Crews, hits the skull-crushing finale. But then that's not even all, because then Baron Corbin, being the lone wolf, badass, don't give a shit son of a bitch that he is, hits a end of days on The Miz.
Loved how Corbin came off here.
He was great, yeah. So the only other big story other than our sort of, well, we have two more stories and then our sort of lead story, the big one that we're going to want to talk about that kind of plays off something that happened on Raw. American Alpha debuted to take on the Vaudevillains. They dominated the Vaudevillains. At the end of the day, this felt like an exhibition match just to show, hey guys, this is American Alpha, and if you don't watch NXT, this is what you've been missing out on.
Completely agree, and I loved it.
And they even did power slides, so there you go.
Yes.
The sort of the semi-main event story is AJ Styles coming out. He wants to talk about John Cena. And before he even gets a chance to say anything about John Cena, Cena comes out and says to AJ that he wants to hear whatever AJ's got to say. AJ says that all he wants to do right now is beat up John Cena. But he does end up cutting a promo about everything that he thinks is bad about John Cena. How kids like him and they want everything and they're spoiled, and how they're given participation trophies, how parents are delusional because they buy into all of their kids' wishes no matter what, and how dumb they are. And then Cena kind of rebukes with, he didn't really force people to like him. He's just, doing his own thing, and people that like him, and they're passionate about it. And he even kind of described about how they even, made up lyrics to his theme song. And then AJ said something, and then Cena talked about how every week he gets "Let's Go Cena," and of course you expect the crowd to say Cena sucks, but it wasn't just the crowd because AJ joined in on that part too. We got those chants for a little bit, and then AJ asked John Cena why he's still here. Which, I mean, if you're an SJW, this is a little bit of a trigger word for Cena, because he flipped out on AJ here. He says he's here out of love. He's here because he loves the kids and the parents and all of these great things that he gets to do, and how he takes no days off because when AJ is sitting at home with his family relaxing, John Cena's on the Tonight Show with Stephen Colbert advertising SmackDown because he loves it and he loves the company and the brand and the people and blah, blah, blah. John Cena stuff, right?
Yeah.
All of this is building up to AJ Styles challenging John Cena to a match at SummerSlam, which Cena does accept. And then AJ says that when I beat you at SummerSlam, you're going to have to come out here on SmackDown Live and admit that you're not as good as AJ Styles. And if you don't, you're a liar. But when you do, you'll be a loser.
Love that closing line from AJ. Great stuff.
And I actually forgot, just kind of as a cool down segment, because we're structuring this like a match card at this point, Heath Slater was in Daniel Bryan's office complaining, talking about how he wants a job. Bryan said, sure, you got a match next week, and if you win, you get a contract. And then he gets gored because his opponent next week will be Rhino.
Really hoping Heath Slater wins.
So our final big thing tonight that we want to talk about is Fandango versus Randy Orton. I know it sounds goofy, but this was a surprisingly even match. But at the end of the day, Orton does end up hitting an RKO. But during the match, we see Brock Lesnar shows up at ringside. They were teasing all night that Brock might be in the building. They were setting up security to make sure Brock didn't do anything. And the next thing you know, Brock shows up in the crowd. Orton is staring at him. Fandango comes in from behind Orton. Orton hits an RKO. And as Orton's getting up from the RKO, Brock Lesnar hits the ring. F5, leave. Charlie Caruso, one of the new correspondents for SmackDown, tried to get an interview with Orton, but he ignored her. And I guess we're going to get more progression on this whole thing next Monday, or hopefully we will at least, on Raw.
Yeah, the biggest development to come out of this was Fandango didn't get pinned, baby.
That's
Yes.
right. Yeah. That being said, though, we still have a lot to say, and you can hear what we have to say on TwitWow.